let me just keep it real with you. Everybody loves to talk about discipline. It's the sexy word at the moment. You know, all the TikToks, the reels, the podcasts, all telling you that discipline is freedom. But what they don't tell you is that discipline sometimes looks like me at 9:30 at night, staring at a bag of hot Cheetos, like my ex toxico. I'd be lying to you if I said it's been easy not being able to have these hot Cheetos. But let me tell you, choosing your future self over this crunchy, spicy, cheesy goodness is definitely what your current self is begging for. And that's really what this whole great lock-in is about for me. It's not about looking perfect or being perfect. It's about showing up for myself over and over and over again, even when it's messy, especially when it's funny, and even when it means that I might be just a little bit embarrassed, but especially when it means that I have to tell you or I have to admit to you that I fall flat on my face too. So if you follow me on TikTok, you know that this past week I was at the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference. And let me tell you that it was so inspiring, so energizing. And it was just so cool to hear so many different perspectives from a lens that I'm not typically accustomed to. I walked away with so much hope for what's possible when communities, that's the key word, when communities come together to solve problems. But the most emotional part of my week was hands down meeting my successor at the role that I have now officially transitioned out of. I mean, meeting my successor was in so many ways bittersweet. On one hand, I'm excited, like truly excited to move on, to be free to explore new opportunities, to re-energize myself and to figure out what makes Mariela outside of that role. But on the other hand, I'm still learning to let go. And I've had a lot of time to really sit and think about why it's been so difficult to let that go. And I think that it's because when you're doing work that you're passionate about, it's not just a job. It becomes part of your identity. You live it, you breathe it, and it shapes you and your frame of reference. And that's a beautiful thing. Like, I don't want people to shy away from doing something that they are super passionate about. But it can also be dangerous. And that's because that comfort, that passion, or that thing that is your identity can easily become a ceiling. And for me, absolutely, leading my previous organization was an honor and a privilege that I am so fortunate to have had. I also knew deep down that there was no more room for me to grow. Like, I had reached the ceiling of what that role could give me. And so now I've, over the past several weeks, really come to the realization that in order for me to grow, I'm also required to let go. And that's been an interesting journey. I believe that God has bigger plans for me. I believe that his plans for me are still deeply aligned with my purpose, my passion, and my community. But to get there, I need to stretch. And in order to stretch, I need to take the risk of stepping out of my comfort, so that I can help unlock that next level of access for my community. And that is something that I am deeply passionate about. Not me making weird faces on the podcast. I hope you ain't watching. But that is something that I'm deeply passionate about. And it's something that I am genuinely excited to continue exploring. And so in retrospect, I'm not going to lie. I think when I met my successor, like, you know how it is, like when there was like an awkwardness, right? And so after we got like past that awkwardness. It was bittersweet, but it was also a really good confirmation for me. Confirmation that it's time for me to grow, confirmation that it's time for me to trust the process, and confirmation for me to step into what's next. And that, my friends, is where the great lock-in comes in. Because if I'm being honest, transitions are hard. Starting over is hard as fuck. Letting go of something that was so deeply rooted in my identity without fully knowing what this next thing is going to be is hard and it's scary. So this lock-in is my way of keeping myself grounded through this season of exploration. It's my structure, my discipline, and my accountability. So here's what I'm going to be locking in on from now through December 31st. Remember, like this was something that I was going to be starting earlier in the month, or in September. I think by the time this actually gets released, it will already be October. So when I originally thought of my lock-in plan, it was very much with the intention of remaining in the role that I was in. But after realizing that it was time to move on, I've had to transition what this particular part of my lock-in is going to look like for me. So I believe that I have finished transitioning out of this role with as much grace as I possibly can. I am locking in on a project that I've been working on for the last maybe 14, 15 months. I'm locking in on that. Like I'm going in on that role 100%. And I'm also keeping my eyes and my ears open, to continue exploring like aligned opportunities for the next phase of my career. The second thing that I'm going to be locking in on is publishing. There are a couple of things that I am super excited about. I am excited to have confirmed all of my co-authors for this first journal submission. That is going to be happening hopefully by the end of this year. In my line of work, I feel like thought leadership isn't just a side hustle, it's a legacy. And I'm excited to build on the foundation that's already been laid through my dissertation work. I am also going to be exploring, or I'm not going to be exploring, right? This is a great lock-in, right? Because semantics is everything. Like I definitely want to make sure that I'm holding myself accountable. I'm excited to explore publishing opportunities to release a book that could possibly showcase case studies of some of the venture capitalists that I interviewed for my dissertation. But also, I think that more broadly, it would be really cool to publish the 4 archetypes that I discovered or highlighted through that work, because I believe that those 4 archetypes can definitely be expanded and built on outside of venture capital. So that's the second thing that I'm locking in on. Personally, like health-wise, I want to make sure that I'm focusing on protein intake, specifically like having like 15 to 20 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up, and then cutting myself off from food after 7 p.m. I think that rather than like holding myself accountable to losing a set number of pounds, I want to hold myself accountable to, nutrition. And I want to make sure that I'm having, again, 15 to 20 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up, and then no food after 7, after my birthday, because it's a birthday. But essentially, I'm thinking about this as, that creating discipline in the little things can definitely create strength for the big things. And then the last thing that I originally had on this great lock-in was launching this podcast, which you're listening to right now. So Mas que Chingona is no longer a dream. It's actually happening. And every week I will be checking in with you on how it's going, the wins, the struggles, the times I almost give up, but the moments that I actually didn't, because that's real life. And that is what locking in looks like. So let me give you a very clear example or a very real example of what locking in looked like for me this week. It's, as you know, like I keep talking about like me have like going through this career transition. And so for me, locking in was number one, showing up in spaces where I knew that I would be uncomfortable because I promised to myself that I would navigate this journey with as much grace as possible. But also, like, I really held myself to account when it came to like the amount of alcohol that I was drinking. So I had no more than 2 cocktails a night. Guys, I work in the venture capital space. Like, I work in ecosystem building. Like, there's no way I will ever go to a conference or some sort of tech week where there will not be alcohol involved. And the truth is that I enjoy having a good time, sometimes maybe too much. And so it's really important for me to make sure that I'm holding myself accountable or that I'm limiting the amount of alcohol that I'm having without like feeling like I'm missing out, because I can feel like I'm missing out. I get really bad FOMO. Yeah. So that was really difficult, right? Like I was at a conference, I was traveling, I was needing to make sure that I was number one, hydrating enough, and number two, like showing up for the events that I needed to be at by a particular time. So I, instead of sitting down and scrolling 45 minutes at a time, or more, I definitely made sure that number one, I was drinking water. Number two, I was moving my body, which reminds me, like, I miss living in a walkable city. Like, I lived in New York City for almost 12 years, and I miss living in a city where I can just get up and go. I currently live in Dallas. I was born and raised here. And this is not a city where you can just get up and walk, at least not where my house is. But I think that where like the lock-in kicked in is when I told myself like, hey, you are not feeling like your best self today. Hey, you are still processing emotions of what this process has been like for you. Pero don't let this day get the best of you. Make sure that you are still out there and actively learning and actively participating, because at the end of the day, like, the next thing that happens for you is going to be a continuation of the thing that you've already built. So lean into that and make sure that you're showing up and that you're being present and that you're able to have conversations with people around what a particular thing looks like through your purview. And so that was challenging, but it was also really satisfying, right? Like when I left, or after having those conversations, when I made sure that I showed up and had those conversations and held myself accountable and quote unquote locked in, it felt really good. And I was glad that I hadn't let myself down. And I guess that's what I mean when I say, like, progress over perfection, because perfection would have said like, no, you're not showing up the way that you would have liked to show up, or you're not showing up in the way that you would have been more comfortable showing up. But the progress side of things said, okay, like you don't have everything figured out yet. And that's okay. So when people are asking you what's next for Mariela, you can be completely honest and you can say, you know what, I'm still figuring it out. And do you have any ideas around how I can still stay engaged? Like, what are like the gaps in the ecosystem that you're seeing that somebody like me who already has A, B, and C experiences can probably lock in, and or can probably, oh, look at me just using lock in everywhere. What are like things A, B, and C that like I can still potentially make a big impact in? So yeah, like that do I have a solution as of today? No, of course not. Like, it was one conference and there were many conversations had around many libations, but I did walk away with ideas of how I can continue to stay plugged in and continue to make and continue to build my consulting business. And so that was something that I was super proud of. Let's talk a little bit about alignment versus achievement. Because for a long time, Dr. Mariela Salas, aka me, I thought that they were the same thing. I mean, achievement in my mind meant that I was aligned, and achievement meant that I was on track. But I learned the hard way that that type of achievement, like ticking things off of a list, it can be a little empty. So I'll give you an example. There was a time when I was hitting every milestone, promotions, titles, accolades, and I felt drained. Like, yes, I was achieving, but I wasn't aligned. On the opposite of that, or on the flip side, when I was in my doctorate program, raising kids, working full time, and still finding time for my friends, that sounds exhausting, right? But it didn't feel like work because it was all aligned. And I was able to curate my life in a way where everything that I did for work translated to everything that I did for my doctorate program. And everything that I did for my doctorate program also aligned with everything that I did for work. And so in my mind, they were one and the same. I loved what I was doing and I loved the life that I was creating. And I absolutely felt like it mattered. And that's the difference, right? Like, achievement feeds your resume, but alignment feeds your soul. And here's the kicker. The world can see your achievements, but only you can feel your alignment. And that's why I'm rebranding my entire existence right now. I'm no longer simply chasing the next title, the next raise, the next external recognition. I'm chasing that alignment. I'm chasing the intersection where passion and purpose meet sustainability, because this all needs to be sustainable. So that is like the compass that I'm using to keep moving forward in reality for me. So that's what the last week has been like for me. But I also wanted to share with you something that I've been like, it's something that I've been sort of working to build as the weeks have been going on um since I started this podcast, and it's something that I've been really honing in on over the last couple of weeks. And for me, it's a Sunday reset. I've really been taking Sundays to really think about this a little bit more clearly. But it's really simple. Take an hour on Sunday to sit with yourself and answer these 3 questions. What lit me up this week? What drained me this week? And what is one small shift that can help me realign next week? That's it. No overcomplicating. No no Pinterest perfect planners required. Just you, a little notebook. This is the one I use. Show you. This is my little notebook. You, a little notebook, maybe a cafecito, a glass of wine, a cocktail if you want, a whole lot of honesty. And just think about these questions and really honestly think about how those 3 answers really fit into like what your form of alignment is. And I don't know. Here's the thing, like, maybe your answers don't have to be deep, right? Sometimes, what lit me up might be like, one of the things that lit me up last week is my 12-year-old actually ate a vegetable, right? Like, because it's a struggle. Like, and sometimes what drained me might be like having to explain to yet another person why I'm leaving this role. But I think that over time, what this helps us do is really think about our patterns, and it helps us highlight our patterns, and it'll really help us see where you're aligned and where you're just achieving for the sake of achievement. And when you see the difference between alignment and simply achieving is when you can start to shift. And that is what the great lock-in is for me. It's not a punishment. It's not a sprint, but it's an active practice of noticing and adjusting and moving closer to alignment. So here's where I'm at. This week has definitely been an emotional roller coaster. I am learning to let go. I'm still grieving in more than one way. I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm hopeful. I'm nervous as fuck. And if you're in a season like that too, I want you to know that you're not alone. Being Mas Que Chingona isn't about never doubting yourself. We are human, right? Like, it's natural to doubt yourself. It's not about never crying or never stumbling. The last time that I cried was this morning. It's about believing that God has more for you. And it's about trusting that growth is worth the discomfort. And it's about showing up for no one else except for yourself in one small aligned action at a time. So this week, ask, where do you need to let go so that you can grow? Because ceilings are meant to be broken, and comfort zones, that's typically not where chingonas live. If there is something on this podcast that resonated with you, if there's something that you are struggling with, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love for you to know that no estás sola. This is Más que Chingona, and it's just the beginning. See you guys next week.